The steady beep, beep, beep of the heart monitor was the only music at my funeral. Well, it wasn't a funeral yet, but it felt like one. The hospital room was freezing, sterile, and empty. Mrs. Sterling? The nurse's voice was soft, pitying. Is there anyone else we can call? Your husband is still not answering. No, I whispered, the words scraping against my dry throat. Don't call again. I knew where Adrian was. He was at the winter gala. He was likely holding a champagne flute in one hand and Sophia's waist with the other. He was celebrating his company's success while his wife of 10 years withered away in a hospital bed, dying of a stress-induced heart failure. I had given him everything, my youth, my talent, my dignity. And in return, he gave me this cold, lonely death. A tear slid down my temple. I hate you, I thought, the regret burning hotter than the pain in my chest. I hate that I loved you. The monitor's rhythm stumbled. Beep, beep, beep. Darkness crushed me. Gasp. My eyes flew open. My lungs violently sucked in air, burning with sun and oxygen. I shot up in bed, clutching my chest, waiting for the pain. But there was no pain. There was no beeping. What? I panted, looking around frantically. Sunlight poured through sheer curtains. I wasn't in the hospital. I was in the master bedroom of the Sterling mansion. I looked at my hands. They were smooth. The 4 bruises were gone. My wedding ring sat heavy on my finger. I grabbed the calendar from the nightstand. May 12th, 2019. 5 years, I breathed out, my voice trembling. I went back 5 years. I scrambled out of bed and stood before the full-length mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the broken gray shell I had become. I was 25. My skin was glowing, my eyes bright. Then I froze. I remembered this date. This was the day my life originally ended. The door handle turned. I stiffened, my heart hammering against my ribs. In my past life, when the door opened, I had run to him. I had kissed him, and then he had shattered me. Adrian walked in. He looked younger, sharper. He wore the navy suit I had picked out for him, adjusting his cufflinks with an air of annoyance. He didn't look at me. Elena, we need to talk, Adrian said, his tone clipped and professional. I didn't move. I didn't run to him. I stood my ground, watching him like a predator watching prey. Do we? I asked calmly. He paused, finally looking up. Confusion flickered in his eyes. He was expecting a submissive wife, not a statue. Yes, he continued, clearing his throat. I've been thinking, it isn't working. I need a partner who understands my vision. I've met someone else, Sophia. The visionary who couldn't even format a spreadsheet correctly. You want a divorce, I said. It wasn't a question. Adrian stepped back, startled by my lack of emotion. Yes, I know this is a shock. I know you love me, and I know you'll beg me to reconsider. Beg? I let out a short, sharp laugh. I walked toward him slowly. In my last life, I had fallen to my knees right here on this rug. I had sobbed until I couldn't breathe. I had promised to change for him. Adrian, I said, stopping inches from him. I looked deep into his arrogant eyes. I don't want to beg. You don't. No. A slow smile spread across my face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone holding the winning card. I want to celebrate. Celebrate? He looked at me as if I were insane. Elena, are you hearing me? I'm leaving you. I heard you perfectly, I said, walking past him toward the closet. I pulled out a suitcase and threw it onto the bed. And it's the best news I've heard in 10 years. You're bluffing, he scoffed, his ego bruised. You can't survive without me. I turned back to him, my eyes cold and hard. Watch me, I whispered. Now get out of my way. I have a life to start and you're blocking my view. Sit down, Elena, Adrian said, pointing to the leather chair opposite his desk. The same chair where I used to sit and listen to him complain about his board members for hours. I'll stand, I replied, my voice steady. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, I didn't want to do this today, but Sophia, she's waiting. We can't hide it anymore. She understands my creative process in a way you just don't. I looked at the divorce papers resting between us on the mahogany desk. You mean she agrees with everything you say? His jaw tightened and he leaned back. She supports me. You've become distant, cold. A wife should be a source of warmth, Elena. You've been nothing but a burden of expectations lately. In my past life, those words had cut me open. I had sobbed, promising to be warmer, softer, better. No, I just reached for the expensive fountain pen sitting on his desk. Is this the only copy? I asked. Adrian blinked, stunned. What? The divorce papers, Adrian. Is this all of them? Yes, but aren't you going to say anything? I'm telling you I love another woman. I'm telling you our marriage is over. I heard you, I said. I uncapped the pen. The ink flowed smoothly as I signed my name at the bottom of the page, Elena Sterling. It looked sharp, final. I pushed the papers back toward him. There, you're free, Adrian. He stared at the signature, then up at me. His face wasn't showing relief, it was showing confusion. He was waiting for the begging. He needed my misery to validate his importance. You're just letting me go? He asked, his voice rising, offended. After 10 years? Do I mean that little to you? You mean exactly what you should mean to me now, I said, capping the pen with a satisfying click. Nothing. I turned on my heel and walked out before he could respond. My heart wasn't racing. It was beating with a slow, powerful rhythm. I went upstairs, grabbed the suitcase I had already packed, and pulled out my phone. Chloe, I said the moment she answered. Elena, hey, I was just about to call you. Do you want to grab lunch? I need a place to stay. I'm leaving Adrian. Silence. Then a shriek that forced me to pull the phone away from my ear. What? Finally. Oh my God, are you okay? Did he hurt you? I'm going to kill him. I'm fine, I said, walking down the grand staircase for the last time. I'm better than fine. I just signed the papers. I'm coming to you. I'm unlocking the door right now. Get out of there, babe. Don't look back. I hung up and walked out the front door. The morning air was crisp. Parked right in front of the driveway was a flashy red convertible. Sophia. She was sitting in the driver's seat, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror. When she saw me coming down the steps with my suitcase, she lowered her sunglasses. A smirk curled her lips. She looked me up and down, her eyes gleaming with triumph. She thought she had stolen a king from a pauper. I stopped by her car window. He's in the study, I told her calmly. Sophia blinked, her smirk faltering slightly at my tone. I know, I'm just waiting for him to kick you out. He didn't kick me out, Sophia. I left. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. Make sure you read the fine print. He's high maintenance. I didn't wait for her response. I threw my bag into my car and started the engine. As I drove past the gates, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time. I saw Sophia rushing into the house, eager to claim her prize. Poor girl. She had no idea she had just won a game that was rigged to lose. I pressed the gas pedal, and for the first time in a decade, I finally breathed. You're sleeping on a futon. Elena, you used to have a mattress made of actual clouds, Chloe said, handing me a chipped mug of instant coffee. I took a sip. It was bitter, hot, and absolutely perfect. The mattress made of clouds came with a husband made of nightmares, I replied, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. I prefer the futon. It's quiet here. Chloe laughed, sitting cross-legged on the floor amidst the boxes of my belongings. Okay, fair point. So, what's the plan? You've been staring at that tablet for 3 hours. I spun the screen around to face her. Displayed on it was a 3D rendering of a spiral glass library I had designed back in college. I'm dusting off the dream, I said. I found a networking event happening tonight. The Architects Gala. I'm going. Chloe's eyes widened as she looked at the design. Wait, you drew this? I thought you just arranged flowers and hosted dinners. That's what Adrian wanted me to do, I said, a dark memory surfacing. In my past life, Adrian had laughed at my sketches, calling them cute hobbies. I had deleted them all to make space on the drive for his business files. Not this time. This time, I'm building something for myself. The gala was loud, filled with the clinking of expensive crystal and the drone of pretentious conversation. I stood near a pillar, smoothing down the black dress I had bought at a thrift store hours ago. It was simple, sharp, and businesslike. I scanned the room and saw him, Mr. Sterling. He was an industry legend, an older man with silver hair and a reputation for being impossible to please. In my previous life, I had met him once at a dinner Adrian hosted. I had spent the entire night running to the kitchen to fetch wine, invisible to the men talking business. I took a deep breath and walked straight up to him. Mr. Sterling? I asked, cutting into his conversation with a boring-looking investor. He turned, looking annoyed. I'm in the middle of a discussion, miss. I know, I said, keeping my voice steady. But you look bored. And I have a design that solves the light filtration problem you mentioned in your interview with Design Weekly yesterday. His eyebrows shot up. The investor looked offended, but Sterling looked intrigued. You read that interview? Everyone else just asked me about my retirement. I don't care about your retirement. I care about your legacy. I held up my tablet. Look. He hesitated, then took the device. He swiped through one image, then another. His bored expression vanished, replaced by a focused frown. He zoomed in on the structural supports of my library design. This load-bearing calculation, he muttered. It's risky. It's efficient, I corrected him. It uses tension cables instead of pillars. It opens the floor plan. He looked up at me, really seeing me for the first time. Who are you with? Davis and Partners? The Miller Group? I'm with no one, I said, meeting his gaze. My name is Elena, and I'm looking for a place where my work speaks louder than my last name. Sterling handed the tablet back, a small smirk playing on his lips. You have an eye, Elena, but raw talent is useless without discipline. I have plenty of discipline, I replied. I just need an opportunity. He pulled a business card from his pocket and flicked it toward me. Be at my office tomorrow at 8 a.m. Don't be late and don't wear that perfume. It's too floral. I took the card, my heart pounding against my ribs. I'll be there at 7:45. We'll see, he grunted, turning back to the investor. I walked away, clutching the card like it was a winning lottery ticket. I didn't need Adrian's money or his influence. I had my own mind, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, someone had finally noticed. You're going to burn out before you hit 30. Mr. Sterling's voice cut through the silence of the empty office. I didn't look up from the blueprint spread across my desk. Diamonds are made under pressure, aren't they? Besides, the atrium skylight isn't reflecting the dawn light correctly. I need to adjust the angle by 2 degrees. Sterling sighed, the heavy sound of a man who wanted to go home. It's 11 p.m., Elena. Go home. The skylight will still be wrong in the morning. You go, I said, finally glancing up with a tired smile. I just need 10 more minutes. He shook his head, grabbing his coat. You're terrifying, you know that? 3 months ago, you were a ghost. Now you're running my firm. Good night, Mr. Sterling. As the elevator doors dinned shut, the silence returned. But my phone buzzed against the mahogany desk, breaking the peace. It was a notification from Chloe. Check your feed. Karma is serving dessert early. I opened the social media app. It was a video from a gossip site tagged #SterlingScandal. The thumbnail showed the front gates of the estate I used to call home. I pressed play. Grandmother Rose was standing on the front porch, leaning heavily on her cane, her face twisted in fury. Sophia was standing at the bottom of the steps, looking shocked and clutching a designer bag. You are not welcome at my table. Rose's voice cracked through the phone speakers, shrill and commanding. That seat belongs to a lady, not a gold digger who doesn't know the difference between a salad fork and a shovel. I flinched. Rose was vicious, but in my past life, I had tamed her. I spent years memorizing her medication schedule, brewing her tea at exactly 80 degrees, and listening to her repetitive stories about the war. I had earned that seat at the table through sweat and silence. Sophia thought she could just sit there because she was pretty. The video ended with Sophia storming off to her car, looking humiliated. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text, it was a voicemail, unknown number. I hesitated, then pressed the speaker button. Elena. It's Adrian. His voice sounded ragged, stressed. There was none of the arrogance from the lawyer's office. Look, I know you're probably busy, but I need help. The tax auditors are here. They're asking about the charity gala receipts from 2017. You always filed them. I asked Sophia to find the box in the study, and she threw it out. She thought it was clutter. Elena, please. I don't know the password to the digital backup. Just call me back. Rose is screaming at me, and I can't find anything. The message ended with a heavy sigh. I stared at the phone. He sounded like a drowning man reaching for a life raft he had personally punctured. You threw out the clutter, Adrian, I whispered to the empty room. Now you have to live in the mess. I tapped the screen, block caller. I picked up my stylus and turned back to the digital rendering of the library, my sanctuary project. It was a space designed for silence, for healing, for rebuilding. I carefully drew a new line, connecting the steel beam to the glass roof. My chest felt light. The skylight was perfect. Stop pacing, Mr. Sterling. You're going to wear a hole in the carpet, I said, smoothing the edges of the oversized blueprints on the conference table. Sterling stopped, adjusting his tie with shaking hands. You don't understand, Elena. Marcus isn't just a client. He owns half the city's tech infrastructure. If he hates this design, he doesn't just fire us. He buries us. He won't hate it, I said, though my own stomach gave a small nervous flutter. The design is solid. It's bold. Bold is dangerous, Sterling muttered. The heavy oak doors swung open. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. A man walked in, flanked by 2 assistants who looked terrified. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than my first car. But it was his face that held my attention. High cheekbones, a sharp jawline, and eyes that were the color of steel-cold, calculating, and utterly unreadable. This was Marcus, the man who had been eating Adrian's market share for breakfast for the last 3 years. Mr. Sterling, Marcus said. His voice was deep, vibrating through the quiet room. He didn't offer a handshake. He just walked to the head of the table. Marcus? Sterling nodded, sweating slightly. Thank you for coming. This is my associate, Elena. She's the lead on your new headquarters project. Marcus turned those steel eyes onto me. I felt like I was being scanned for weaknesses. In my past life, I would have looked at the floor. Today, I held his gaze. Elena, he repeated, testing the name. You look young to be designing $1 billion facility. My age doesn't affect my ability to calculate structural loads, I replied smoothly. Sterling choked on a cough. Marcus paused, then the corner of his lip twitched. Show me, he commanded. I unrolled the blueprints. We scrapped the traditional cubicle layout. Your company thrives on collaboration, so I designed a central neural network, a circular atrium that connects every department via glass sky bridges. It encouraged visibility. Marcus leaned over the table, tracing a line on the paper with a long finger. Visibility is a security risk. Ideal in data, Elena. I can't have my engineers' screens visible from the lobby. They aren't, I countered, pointing to the elevation chart. The glass is polarized. You can see out, but no one can see in. It grants your team a sense of freedom while maintaining absolute secrecy. It's expensive, he challenged, not looking up. It's an investment, I shot back. You told Forbes last month that you wanted a building that breathed. Standard concrete walls don't breathe, Marcus. They suffocate. Sterling looked like he was about to faint. I had just corrected the most powerful man in the city. Marcus slowly lifted his head. For a long, agonizing silence, he just stared at me. Adrian Sterling used to say that aesthetics were secondary to budget, Marcus said quietly. I assume you're related? I was his wife, I said, my voice turning ice cold. Now, I'm just the architect who is going to fix the skyline he's been ruining. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. A spark of something interest, amusement, flared in them. You speak your mind, he observed. I speak the truth. The design works. If you want a fortress, hire a contractor. If you want a legacy, hire me. I held my breath. This was it. I had either just launched my career or destroyed it. Marcus stood up straight. He looked at Sterling, who was pale as a sheet, and then back at me. Keep the glass, Marcus said. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. But, he added, stepping closer to me, invading my personal space just enough to make my heart race not from fear, but from electricity. I want the central atrium taller, make it ambitious. Like you. I can do that, I managed to say. Good. He buttoned his jacket, his gaze lingering on my face. Most people tremble when I question them. You didn't flinch. I've dealt with worse than difficult questions, I said, thinking of the years of emotional neglect I had endured. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a polite business smile. It was genuine, sharp, and dangerous. I like a woman who knows her worth, he said softly for my ears only. Send me the revised drafts by Monday. He turned and walked out, his assistants scrambling to follow. I stood there, feeling the blood rush back into my hands. Adrian had always told me I was too loud, too opinionated, too much. Marcus had looked at my fire and told me to burn brighter. He liked it, Sterling whispered, collapsing into a chair. I think I need a drink. I'll get the coffee, I said, staring at the closed door. We have a skyscraper to build. Red? Marcus murmured, his eyes sweeping over the crimson silk of my gown. A bold choice. I adjusted the strap on my shoulder, looking at my reflection in the limousine window. My ex-husband hated red. He said it was too loud. He preferred pastels. Things that faded into the background. He was afraid of the noise, Marcus replied smoothly, offering me his arm as the driver opened the door. I prefer a symphony. I took his arm. Then let's make some music. We entered the grand ballroom and the atmosphere shifted instantly. The hum of conversation died down, replaced by whispers. I held my head high. In my past life, I walked 2 steps behind Adrian, invisible and silent. Tonight, walking beside Marcus, I felt like the center of gravity. Don't look now, Marcus whispered, leaning close to my ear, but your past is staring at you. I followed his gaze. Near the champagne tower stood Adrian and Sophia. My breath hitched, not from pain, but from shock. Adrian looked disheveled. His tuxedo jacket was bunching up his shoulders. He had clearly bought it off the rack without tailoring it. I used to schedule his fittings months in advance. His tie was slightly crooked. And Sophia. She was wearing a dress covered in so many sequins she looked like a disco ball had exploded. It was tight, flashy, and completely wrong for a black tie event. Adrian was holding a glass of scotch, looking bored while Sophia chattered at him. Then he saw me. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. He blinked as if he couldn't process what he was seeing. He looked at the crimson dress, then at my face, and finally at Marcus's hand resting possessively on my lower back. He shoved his glass onto a passing waiter's tray and walked straight toward us, leaving Sophia mid-sentence. Elena? His voice was a mix of disbelief and accusation. He stopped 2 feet away, ignoring Marcus completely. Hello, Adrian, I said. My voice was cool, steady. You look? He raked his eyes over me, searching for the submissive wife he had discarded. He didn't find her. You look different. I am different, I replied. Unhappy. His jaw tightened. And who is this? He finally acknowledged Marcus with a sneer. Your rebound? Careful, Sterling, Marcus said, his voice deep and calm like a rumbling storm. You're speaking to the lead architect of my new headquarters? Adrian's eyes widened. Architect? You? You're actually working? I'm not just working, Adrian. I'm winning, I said, enjoying the shock on his face. Marcus values talent, not just obedience. You're making a mistake, Elena, Adrian snapped, his face flushing red. You don't belong in this world. You belong at home. You're trying to spite me, aren't you? Wearing that dress, parading around with my rival? Not everything is about you, Adrian, I said, sighing. Actually, nothing is about you anymore. I turned to leave, tugging gently on Marcus's arm. Let's go, Marcus. The air is stale here. No, wait, Adrian lunged forward, grabbing my bare arm. His grip was desperate, too tight. We need to talk. Privately. Now. I flinched, the memory of his controlling nature flashing back. Before I could pull away, a large hand clamped over Adrian's wrist. Marcus didn't shove him. He just squeezed, hard. Let go, Marcus commanded. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a terrifying weight. Adrian gasped, his fingers springing open as he recoiled. He rubbed his wrist, looking up at Marcus with fear dawning in his eyes. She's with me, Marcus said, stepping between us, shielding me completely from Adrian's view. And unlike you, I know how to treat a masterpiece. Walk away, Sterling. Before I buy your company just to fire you. Adrian stumbled back, his face pale. People were staring. Sophia had finally caught up, grabbing his arm and glaring at me, but Adrian shook her off, humiliated. This isn't over, Elena, he muttered, turning and retreating into the crowd. I let out a shaky breath. Marcus turned to me, his expression softening instantly. Are you all right? He asked. I am, I said, looking at Adrian's retreating back. I really am. Good, Marcus smiled, offering his arm again. Then let's go get a drink. I believe we have a victory to toast. File not found. The error message blinked mockingly on my monitor. I clicked refresh, nothing. The entire folder for the library renovation weeks of work was gone. Technical difficulties, Elena? I spun my chair around. Isabella was leaning against the doorframe of my office, sipping a latte with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was a senior architect who had hated me from the moment Marcus praised my designs. I saw you near my desk while I was in the restroom, Isabella, I said, keeping my voice low. She shrugged, feigning innocence. I was just admiring your workspace. It's a shame about your files, though. The presentation for Marcus is in an hour. He doesn't tolerate incompetence. He doesn't tolerate sabotage either. Isabella laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. You can't prove anything. Sophia was right about you. You're just a fragile little housewife playing dress up. I froze. Sophia? We go to the same gym, Isabella sneered, realizing she had said too much but not caring. She told me how pathetic you were, how you'd cry if the roast burned. She said you'd crumble the moment the pressure got real. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt a strange sense of calm. Isabella, I said, reaching into my purse and pulling out a small encrypted hard drive. Do you know what it's like to live with a man who checks your receipts, your mileage, and your browser history every night? Her smile faltered. What? It makes you paranoid, I explained, plugging the drive into the USB port. And it makes you prepared. I back up my work every 20 minutes to 3 separate locations. One cloud, one server, one physical. The screen flickered and my files reappeared instantly. You didn't delete my work, I said, standing up. You just deleted your credibility. If you ever touch my desk again, I'll show the security logs to Marcus. Isabella turned pale, spun on her heel, and stormed out without a word. I needed air. And coffee. I walked to the cafe down the street, my mind racing. Sophia knew Isabella. Sophia was actively trying to destroy me through others. I ordered my black coffee and turned to find a table. That's when I saw the red hair. Sophia, she was sitting in a secluded booth in the back, but she wasn't alone. A man was sitting across from her, rough, unshaven, wearing a leather jacket that looked fast and cheap. I ducked behind a large potted fern, my heart pounding. I need more time, Leo, Sophia hissed. Her voice carried over the low hum of the cafe. I'm done giving you time, the man, Leo growled. He slammed a hand on the table. You said the divorce settlement would be huge. You said you'd have cash. Adrian is cash poor right now. Sophia pleaded, looking terrified. The grandmother watches the accounts like a hawk. I can't just withdraw 50 grand without raising flags. Not my problem, babe, Leo sneered. Pay up or maybe I go introduce myself to Adrian. Tell him about Vegas. Tell him who you really are. You wouldn't dare, she whispered, shaking. Try me. You have 1 week. Leo stood up, grabbed a muffin from her plate and walked out. Sophia put her head in her hands. I slipped out the side door before she could see me. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from realization. Sophia wasn't just a mistress, she was a fraud, and Leo was the key. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had found online but hoped never to use. Hello, Sterling Investigations? I asked, watching Leo walk down the street. I need to hire you. I need to know everything about a man named Leo, and I need to know what happened in Vegas. I hung up. They wanted to play dirty? Fine, I was done being the victim. It was time to be the hunter. She paid him $50,000? Chloe shrieked, staring at the glossy photo spread across her kitchen table. From Adrian's corporate account? It gets worse, I said, flipping the page of the investigator's report. Look at her resume versus the background check. Sophia Vance, art history major at NYU? No, Sophia Vance, cocktail waitress, Las Vegas. Chloe looked up, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. She lied about everything, and Adrian bought it? Mister, I check every receipt, bought it? He only checks the things he doesn't trust, I murmured, staring at the grainy photo of Sophia handing a thick envelope to Leo in a parking lot. He trusted her because she stroked his ego. I challenged him, so he audited me. She flattered him, so he gave her the codes. What are you going to do? Chloe asked, tapping the photo of Leo violently. Post this? Send it to the tabloids? Destroy her? No, I said, sliding the photos back into the manila envelope. I'm going to give it to the only person Adrian actually listens to when panic sets in. Thomas looked exhausted. The bags under his eyes were dark enough to carry luggage, and his tie was askew. He stirred his black coffee nervously as he sat across from me in the quiet cafe. It's good to see you, Mrs. I mean, Elena, he corrected himself, offering a weak, apologetic smile. Things are chaotic at the office. Adrian is missing deadlines. He misses your organizational systems, even if he won't admit it. I didn't ask you here to talk about Adrian's schedule, Thomas, I said gently. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. I slid it across the small table. It hit his coffee cup with a soft thud. What is this? He asked, eyeing it warily. The reason the company accounts are bleeding, I stated. Thomas frowned, his hand hovering over the paper. We have auditors looking into that. They think it's a clerical error in the procurement department. It's not an error, Thomas. It's a withdrawal. He opened the flap. I watched his face closely as he pulled out the bank statements I had highlighted in neon yellow, followed by the damning photos of Sophia and Leo arguing. His eyes widened. His hand flew to his mouth. She's paying a blackmailer? Thomas whispered, his voice trembling. With the construction fund? She's been siphoning money for months. And that man, Leo, he's her ex-husband. They never legally divorced in Nevada before she married Adrian. Thomas dropped the photo as if it burned him. Bigamy? Fraud? If this gets out, the stock will tank. Grandmother rose. The shock could kill her. That's why I'm giving it to you, I said, leaning in, my voice firm. I don't want Adrian back, Thomas. Make that very clear. If he came crawling to me on fire, I wouldn't piss on him to put it out. But I respect Rose, and I respect the work you all do. I won't watch her legacy burn because Adrian is thinking with the wrong anatomy. You want me to tell him? Thomas asked, looking pale. Not yet, I advised. Wait until the quarterly review next week. Wait until she tries to ask for access to the family trust fund. Then show him who he really married. Thomas slowly put the photos back, his expression hardening into resolve. He looked at me with a new kind of respect. He destroyed a good life for a lie, didn't he? Yes, I stood up, buttoning my coat. He did. Thank you, Elena. I'll handle this. Don't thank me, I said, turning toward the door. Just save the company. Walking out into the cold autumn air, I expected to feel a surge of victory. Instead, I felt a hollow ache in my chest. It wasn't for the man I lost, he was gone long ago. It was for the 10 years I had spent trying to be perfect, only to be replaced by a cheap illusion. But at least now, the truth was armed and ready. And the award for National Newcomer of the Year goes to... The presenter paused, milking the silence. My heart hammered against my ribs, loud enough, I feared, for the microphone to pick up. Beside me, Marcus didn't look nervous. He looked inevitable. He squeezed my hand beneath the table. Elena. The room exploded. The sound was a physical wave pushing me to my feet. Marcus was the first to stand, pulling me into a brief, fierce hug. Go, he whispered against my ear. Take what's yours. I walked to the stage, my legs trembling but my steps sure. I took the heavy crystal trophy. The lights were blinding, turning the audience into a sea of faceless shadows. I leaned into the microphone. Thank you, I said, my voice echoing through the massive hall. They say architecture is about materials, steel, glass, concrete. But I've learned that the strongest structures are built from ruins. We build because we have to survive the collapse. This award isn't just for a building. It's for everyone who had to rebuild their life from the ground up when the foundation gave way. The applause roared back, louder this time. I scanned the room, shielding my eyes from the spotlight. That's when I saw him. Way in the back, near the exit signs, stood a solitary figure, Adrian. He wasn't clapping. He stood with his hands in his pockets, his shoulders slumped. He looked smaller than I remembered. Grayer, he was watching me not with anger, but with a devastating hollow hunger. He was looking at the woman he threw away, realizing too late that I was the prize he had been searching for all along. I didn't smile at him. I didn't frown. I simply looked away, turning my back on him to face the cameras. You're hiding, Marcus said an hour later. I was leaning against the stone railing of the venue's balcony, the cold night wind feeling wonderful against my flushed skin. The party raged on inside, a muffled thump of bass and laughter. I'm not hiding, I replied, turning to face him. I'm breathing. It's loud in there. Marcus walked over, handing me a fresh glass of champagne. He placed his own glass on the ledge and looked out at the city skyline, a skyline that now featured my work. You were magnificent up there, he said quietly. But then I knew you would be. You had a lot of faith in a woman who had no resume 6 months ago, I noted, taking a sip. I didn't need a resume. I saw you. I frowned, confused. What do you mean? We met at Mr. Sterling's office. Marcus turned his steel-gray eyes toward me. No, we met 3 years ago. At Adrian's Christmas gala. I don't remember you there. You wouldn't? You were too busy fixing the seating chart because the caterer messed up. I watched you manage a crisis with grace while Adrian sat in the corner drinking scotch and taking credit for the party. He took a step closer, his voice dropping an octave. I wondered then. Why is a woman with fire in her eyes letting a man like that treat her like a shadow? I stared at him stunned. You saw me? I always saw you, Elena. I just couldn't reach you. My breath hitched. The wind whipped a strand of hair across my face, and Marcus reached out, tucking it gently behind my ear. His hand lingered on my cheek. His touch wasn't possessive like Adrian's. It was grounding, warm. I'm not a shadow anymore, I whispered. No, he agreed, his thumb brushing my jawline. You're the light. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. I leaned forward, closing the gap. When his lips met mine, it wasn't an explosion. It was an anchor dropping into deep, calm water. It felt safe. It felt like I had stopped running. I wrapped my arms around his neck, deepening the kiss, realizing that for the first time in my life, I wasn't just being chosen. I was choosing back. Are you sure you want to watch this? Thomas asked, his finger hovering over the play button on his tablet. We were sitting in my car, parked 2 blocks away from the Sterling estate. Press it, I said, my voice devoid of mercy. The screen flickered to life. It was security footage from the main drawing room. Thomas had positioned the camera perfectly. On the screen, Grandmother Rose was throwing a stack of papers into the air. They fluttered down like snow around Adrian and Sophia. Embezzlement. Rose's voice was tinny through the tablet speakers, but still terrifying. You let this harlot steal from the family trust? It's a mistake. Sophia sobbed, clutching Adrian's arm. She was wearing a white dress, trying to look angelic, but her mascara was already running. Elena faked these. She's jealous, Adrian, you believe me, don't you? Adrian looked at the bank statements scattered on the floor. He looked pale, shaking his head. Sophia, these are authorized with your biometric ID. Elena hasn't had access in months. She hacked it. Sophia shrieked. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the entrance of the drawing room in the video. The heavy doors banged open. Leo? Sophia froze, her face draining of all color. The man from the cafe, Leo, swaggered in, pushing past a spluttering butler. He looked out of place among the antiques, grinning like a shark. Sorry to crash the party, Leo announced, looking straight at Sophia. But you're late on the payment, babe. And I'm not a patient man. Who is this? Adrian demanded, stepping forward, trying to muster some authority. I'm the guy she owes 50 grand to, Leo laughed, thumbing at Sophia. Hush money. Isn't that right, Mrs. Sterling, or should I say Mrs. Miller? Since we never actually signed those divorce papers in Vegas, silence descended on the room. It was absolute and suffocating. What? Adrian whispered. He turned slowly to Sophia. You're married? No, he's lying, Sophia screamed, backing away. Adrian, please. I have the certificate right here, Leo said, pulling a crumpled paper from his jacket. She played you, rich boy. She's not an art historian. She used to mix drinks at the Golden Nugget. Adrian snatched the paper. He read it once, then twice. His hands started to shake violently. You lied, Adrian said, his voice dangerously quiet. About everything. I did it for us. Sophia wailed, grabbing his lapels. I love you. Get off me. Adrian roared, shoving her away so hard she fell onto the expensive Persian rug. You're a fraud. You made a fool of me. Get her out. Grandmother Rose banged her cane on the floor. And get him out too. Adrian, you're suspended from the board effective immediately. You traded a diamond for a piece of glass, and you bankrupted us to do it. Adrian? Sophia pleaded, reaching for his leg. Security, Adrian yelled, not looking at her. Throw her out, and him. If they return, call the police. I watched as 2 guards dragged a screaming Sophia and a laughing Leo out of the frame. The room on the screen went quiet. Grandmother Rose spat on the floor near Adrian's feet and walked out, leaving him alone. Thomas paused the video. What happened after the camera cut? I asked softly. Thomas sighed, rubbing his temples. I went in to collect the files. He was just sitting there in the dark. He looked at me and asked if he knew. I didn't answer. Good, I said. Before I left, Thomas added, his voice lowering, he opened the drawer of the side table. He took out that photo of you, the one from your honeymoon in Italy. He just held it, Elena. He looks like a man who realized he's been dead for months and didn't know it. I looked out the car window. At the distant mansion, I felt the final weight of the past lift off my shoulders. He made his bed, I said, starting the car engine. Now he can freeze in it, Mrs. Sterling? I tried to stop him, but my secretary's frantic voice over the intercom was cut short by the sound of my office door slamming open. I didn't flinch. I slowly capped my pen and looked up from the blueprints. Adrian stood in the doorway. But he wasn't the polished, arrogant man I had divorced. His hair was messy, his tie was undone, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. Elena, he breathed out, sounding like he had just run a marathon. Thank God. You don't have an appointment, Adrian, I said, leaning back in my chair. And security is on its way. I don't need an appointment. He rushed toward my desk, stumbling slightly. He smelled of stale scotch and desperation. I needed to see you. I needed to explain. Explain what? I asked coldly. How you let a con artist empty your accounts. Or how you humiliated your grandmother. I was a fool. He cried, slamming his hands onto my desk. I admit it. I was blind. Sophia, she was a poison. She manipulated me. She made me think our marriage was the problem. But it wasn't. We were perfect, Elena, you and me. We were a team. We were never a team, I corrected him. I was your servant and you were the master. There is a difference. No, that's not true, he pleaded, reaching across the desk to grab my hand. I pulled it away instantly. I miss you, the house. It's so cold without you. The staff doesn't know how to run things. Rose won't even look at me. I'm drowning, Elena. I need you to come home. I looked at him, really looked at him. He didn't miss me. He missed the convenience of me. He missed having his life organized, his dinner ready, and his ego stroked. You want me to come back to fix your mess, I said flatly. I want my wife back. He sounded like a petulant child. I love you. I know I hurt you, but I can make it up to you. I'll buy you a new car. We can go to Paris. Just, please, stop this nonsense with Marcus and come home. I stood up slowly. The chair scraped against the floor, a harsh sound in the quiet room. You think this is about money? I asked softly. You think you can just buy me back like a piece of furniture you accidentally sold? I'm willing to forgive you, he blurted out. For the embarrassment, for the divorce papers. We can wipe the slate clean. I let out a short, dry laugh. You forgive me? That is rich, Adrian. I walked around the desk until I was standing right in front of him. He looked hopeful, thinking I was coming to him. The Elena who loved you died the night you left, I told him, my voice hard as steel. His smile faltered. What? I am not her, I continued, staring into his watery eyes. I am the woman who survived you. And she has absolutely no use for you. Elena, don't say that. Get out. No. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip desperate. I'm not leaving. You belong to me. I didn't struggle. I simply reached over and pressed the red button on my desk phone. Now, I said into the speaker. 2 large security guards burst into the room. They didn't hesitate. Each one grabbed one of Adrian's arms. Get your hands off me. Adrian screamed, thrashing as they dragged him backward. Elena, you're making a mistake. You need me. I need you to leave, I said calmly. Elena. His voice cracked, echoing down the hallway as they hauled him out. The door clicked shut, cutting off his screams. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling glass wall that overlooked the lobby. A minute later, I saw them shove him out the front doors onto the sidewalk. He stood there for a moment, looking up at my window. He looked small, pathetic. I waited for the satisfaction to hit me. I waited for the joy of revenge. But there was nothing. No joy, no anger, no sadness. Just a quiet, empty silence. I turned my back on the window and sat back down at my desk. I picked up my pen. Finally, I whispered to myself. Peace, order. Judge Miller slammed his gavel. The sound echoed through the courtroom like a gunshot. Mr. Sterling, if you interrupt one more time, I will hold you in contempt. Adrian slumped in his chair, rubbing his face. I'm just trying to explain, Your Honor. The liquidity issues are temporary. My wife, my ex-wife knows that Sterling Industries is resilient. Was resilient, I corrected him, flipping a page in my file calmly. Before you let a con artist embezzle the operating capital. Adrian looked at me, his eyes pleading, begging for a shred of the woman who used to cover for his mistakes. Elena, don't do this here, not in front of the judge. Have some mercy. I'm not doing anything, Adrian, I said, not even looking at him. The math is doing it. Judge Miller adjusted his glasses, looking down at the financial reports with a deep frown. Miss Vance is correct. The court finds that Mr. Sterling's assets are currently frozen pending the fraud investigation. Therefore, your request to retain the Lakeside estate is denied. It is awarded to Miss Vance as compensation for the liquidated joint savings. But that's my family home. Adrian protested, half rising, his voice cracking. You can't take that. It was, Judge Miller said coldly. Now it's settlement, case closed. The divorce is final, bang. The sound of the gavel was the sweetest music I had ever heard. Elena, Adrian whispered as we stood up. He reached for my sleeve, his hand shaking. Please, I have nowhere to go. Grandmother Rose changed the locks. I'm broke. I pulled my arm away, smoothing my blazer. You're a resourceful man, Adrian. You'll figure it out. Or you won't. I walked past him without looking back. The moment I pushed open the heavy courthouse doors, the world exploded in white light. Miss Vance, over here. A wall of paparazzi swarmed the steps. In the past, they would have shoved past me to get a quote from Adrian about his empire. Today, the microphones were thrust in my face. Is it true your firm is bidding on the new City Hall project? Miss Vance, tell us about the Phoenix Tower design. One at a time, I said, smiling confidently for the cameras. Yes, the rumors are true. We break ground next month. What about Mr. Sterling? A reporter shouted from the back. Does he have a comment? I glanced over my shoulder. Adrian was standing in the shadow of the doorway, looking terrified of the flashing lights. He looked like a ghost haunting a world that had already moved on. Mr. Sterling has no comment, I told the press, turning back to the future. He's just part of the history. I descended the steps toward my waiting car. The driver held the door open. I slid into the leather seat. Where to, Miss Vance? I checked the rearview mirror. Adrian was just a blurry gray figure shrinking into nothingness. To the site, I said. We have work to do. Pop. The champagne cork flew across the executive suite, bouncing harmlessly off the pristine floor-to-ceiling glass. Chloe, careful, I laughed, shaking my head. That glass is custom imported. It cost more than my first car. Oh, please, Chloe grinned, ignoring me as she filled 3 crystal flutes to the brim. She looked professional in her tailored suit, every bit the head of marketing I knew she could be. You own the building, Elena. You can afford a scratch. Besides, look at this view. The Phoenix Tower, tallest in the city. And you built it. I walked to the edge, feeling the vibration of the city hum beneath my feet. 2 years. It had been 2 years of grinding, designing, and conquering. It does look good from up here, I admitted, tracing the reflection of the steel frame I had sketched on a napkin back in Chloe's tiny apartment. Good? It's iconic, Chloe insisted, shoving a glass into my hand. The press is calling it the glass crown. You're the queen, babe. Own it. I'm just the architect, Chloe. And I'm the one who needs a refill. She winked, dancing away toward the bar cart to grab the bottle. I smiled, taking a sip. Suddenly, I felt a familiar warmth radiate against my back. Strong arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me flush against a solid chest. The scent of sandalwood and rain enveloped me. I leaned back, resting my head on Marcus's shoulder. You're quiet, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. Thinking about the journey? Thinking about the destination, I replied softly, placing my hands over his. You did it, Elena, he murmured, kissing the side of my neck. You really did it. I looked at my reflection in the glass. The woman staring back wasn't the sad, broken wife who died in that hospital bed. She was sharp, she was loved, she was whole. Somewhere down there in the dark shadows of the city streets, Adrian was living a small, regretful life, but the thought of him didn't sting. It didn't even itch. He was just a ghost story I used to tell myself. I had outgrown the need for revenge because I had built something far more permanent, happiness. I turned in Marcus's arms to face him. No, I corrected him, smiling as I looked into those steel gray eyes that had seen me when no one else did. We did it, I pressed my forehead against his. I had become the dream Adrian could never touch, and finally that was enough.